As I was researching my subject matter for today's My Take, something happened that threw me in my entire day really into chaos. And no, I'm not talking about a sale on dilly bars down at the Dairy Queen or 2-for-1 lap dances down at the strip club. No, I got a phone call today, a phone call that I was not expecting from my good friend and partner. And I don't know, partner? Is that right? Partner? He hadn't been around in forever. Does that still count as a partnership? I don't know. I'm going to have the attorneys take a look at that. But anyway, no, I got a call from one Erwin The Millennial, who has decided that he has got some things to say. And you know what? We have not heard from Erwin The Millennial in quite a while. He has been dealing with the after effects of an absolutely horrific herpes outbreak that was brought on by a visit to an underage Vietnamese prostitute. At least, that's what I assume happened. I mean, that's what I've been telling everybody anyway. But here he is, mouth all healed up, no herpes sores in the way, and he's ready to chat. So with no further ado, welcome to the Political Pop Culture Podcast, where the important and not so important issues of the day are broken down, discussed, and occasionally even mocked and ridiculed by a couple of regular guys from flyover country. I am JP, and with me today is Erwin the Millennial. And I tell you what, if you caught our last podcast, that's awesome for you, because it's been a long time since the two of us were able to get together and do a podcast. And I would like to go ahead, take this opportunity to apologize to the, 4-5 fans that we had that were following us at the time of our fall from regularity. But as John Lennon once said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. A lot of things have been going on in my life. A lot of things obviously have been going on in Erwin the Millennial's life, and those things have managed to conspire to keep us from being able to do the podcast as we'd originally intended. So now I'm hopeful that maybe we'll be able to get back on the right track. At the very least, I hope we can have a good conversation today. Erwin the Millennial, how the hell have you been, man? How are those underage Vietnamese herpes sores treating you these days?
Saigon was great. I got back a couple of weeks ago. So other than that, it brings me back to the analogy that some of my sports coaches used to say. There's a difference between being hurt and injured. So with that being said, I might be hurt, but I'm not injured. That means I can play. So here we are doing this podcast.
Hey, I love it. I love the attitude. I love the never say die. Not going to let those underage Vietnamese prostitutes get you down. So
I've seen it 100 times.
Indeed. Wasn't that Eric Stilwell, whatever his name is, the Congress? Oh no, she was a Chinese spy. That was
Chinese spies. Yes. That's
Swalwell. That's it. Swalwell. I
the guy that farted on TV.
Okay. So you're here, you're back, we're talking, which is kind of cool. We haven't done that in a while. What's been going on? Obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm being completely sarcastic about the whole Vietnamese prostitute thing. Everybody knows that Erwin the Millennial actually has a thing for Filipinos. So I'm obviously kidding about the Vietnamese thing. But what's been going on? Seriously, what's been going on? How are you doing? And what do you want to talk about today, man?
Well, since our last podcast, things were going okay. They weren't amazing, they weren't great, but things were going okay. And it seems like when we kind of signed off there, everybody decided that was just their opportunity to just wreck everything, didn't they?
Yeah, right? Seriously, it's like I think the last podcast we did, if I remember correct, we were still talking about Biden. We were talking about
yes.
Sexual harassment governor with Cuomo up there in New York. So it's been a while since we've talked. And yeah, man, it seems like everything has just absolutely gone bonkers. From Mr. Dementia himself, King Joseph I. One of those things I know has been on your mind, and that, of course, is with King Joseph I's announcement yesterday about student loan forgiveness. We've been hearing Democrats, again, screeching about this for years, especially people like Elizabeth Warren out of where the hell is she out of? Massachusetts. And
the reservation.
Yeah, straight off the reservation. That's right. Good Lord. But anyway, so lots of just lots of craziness has been going on. The world seems like it is going insane. Obviously, the whole Ukraine thing wasn't a thing when the last time we got together and talked.
January 6th hadn't even happened. We hadn't even gotten to January 6th.
Oh, yes, we had. Really? It hasn't been that long.
I don't think we talked about it on the show.
No, that can't be right. Hang on a second. I'm gonna look and see when the last. When was the last podcast that we put?
I don't think that we had talked about Jan 6th.
Oh yeah. We had the last episode that we did was March 8th of 2021.
2021. Okay.
And yeah, we had talked.
So we had gotten there. Okay.
Yeah, we had talked about Biden, Cuomo, Texas, and what was that? Oh, MILF censorship. That was actually a pretty good episode. For anybody who hasn't listened to that, you should go back and listen. I mean, some of the political stuff is a little tired by this point, but some of the commentary on that MILF censorship deal I thought was pretty freaking hilarious. We obviously we've missed a ton. It's been over a year, which is hard to believe. I went through a lot. For people who don't know, I was primary caregiver for my mother for the last couple years of her life, and unfortunately she passed back in January. And so I was dealing with all of that. And then, you had some family issues we don't need to get into, but, you had some family issues that you've been dealing with. And so again, life just kind of conspired to keep us apart. And here we are, almost 8 minutes into this podcast. And we really haven't said a damn thing. So
oopsie,
we'll get there at some point. We will get there. So I'm gonna give you the floor for a minute. You tell me, man. What do you want to talk about first, and we'll just kind of go at it.
Well, yeah. So basically, when we're talking about the current event, obviously the student loan stuff, then I can't really come up with a logical reasoning as to why you would do this, especially now, other than you just purchasing votes. Attempting to get millennial voters to vote for you in November 2022 really screams of desperation for the Democrats from where I'm standing.
I don't even think Erwin the Millennial. I don't even think it's the millennial vote that he's going after. I think it's that Gen Z vote. I think that he is trying to pull. The current college crowd. 25
to 30. Yeah, 20 to 30.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that is literally the biggest story of the day. It is one that virtually everybody seems to be talking about right now. And honestly, that was the subject of today's My Take that I was working on when I discovered that instead we were going to be doing something together, which is great. Happy to be doing it. But the question that I had for my take is this, by this I mean the loan forgiveness, is this meant to be a real cure for what a lot of people consider to be crushing student debt, or is this, like you said, merely a taxpayer-funded bribe by Democrats who are trying to buy those votes for the midterm elections? And obviously, I have a pretty good idea where you're going to come down on that. But then beyond that, my other big question on this is this decree from King Joseph I even legal? I mean, is it legal for the president of the United States to say, hey, I'm just going to wipe out debt that is currently being held by the federal government with the stroke of a pen? Is that legal, or is he overstepping his authority? So, if we're going to talk about the student debt thing, man, I'd love to get your take on that. I'd love to dig into that a little bit and see, first of all, again, if you think this is a real cure, what do you think the purpose behind it is? And again, is it legal?
So first and foremost, if you're truly looking for a cure for student debt, that's like looking for the cure for stage 4 cancer. It doesn't exist. Like there's not many things that you can do. At the end of the day, if you were actually looking for a remedy, what you got to do is you got to get government out of the student loan business altogether, because that's exactly when the student loans got crazy. Because guess what? When the government started guaranteeing student loans, is when colleges really started to go crazy with tuition. It started going crazy with irresponsible loan practices as well. Because if I were the college sitting across the table from this 18-year-old kid and he was signing an $80,000 note, I don't care if he ever pays me back, because the government already cut the check.
Absolutely.
So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to play chicken with pricing equilibrium as it pertains to college tuition. Okay, so the government's going to pay me $85K for this kid's 4 years of college. I'm going to charge $85K, and the government's going to cut the check. I don't care if I ever see Billy ever again after his second semester of his freshman year, because the government already paid me. So what you did was you just incentivized really, really piss poor loan practices, which just jacked up the cost of tuition. So with that being said,
I'd actually let me interject real quick. I would actually go a step further and say it wasn't just piss poor loan practices; it was predatory. It was predatory loan practices, because just like you said, you had the government coming in and saying to Mr. or Mrs. Loan arranger, you can go in and you can give this kid a loan for $30 or $40 or $50 or $80 or $100,000, and we're going to back that loan. So you're going to get paid regardless of what happens with that student. And so as a result, these companies would come in and hit these kids. And at the time that this was really big over the last few years, even when rates overall were low, a lot of these kids are still getting hit with 4.5%, 5% loans on these student loans. And absolutely, unquestionably, my opinion, predatory, not just piss poor. Sorry, go ahead.
No, predatory is a great way to describe that. And on top of that, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because this has been I think it's a $1.2 trillion bubble. And the reason that I use the word bubble is because I think that the last numbers that I saw, that 1 in 2 people that had student loans weren't actually making payments. They had either defaulted, or they were in forbearance. So I mean, when you look at a debt that's owed to that magnitude, at the end of the day, the government was always going to eat this money. So I guess what I'm saying is this first $10,000 piece is just the tip of the iceberg. The government's going to do this again.
Well, they're going to have to, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But here's the thing. Now, you just said, this $10,000, and here's the thing. Yeah, for most people, or a lot of people, that $10,000 number up to $10,000 is accurate, but it's actually up to $20,000 if you have a Pell Grant. Yeah, and I made the argument on Twitter, and I don't know if anybody listening, if you follow us on Twitter. I've made the joke in the past, don't stop, because Twitter is the bathroom floor of society. But I will tell you that I've actually really begun to enjoy some of the back and forth with people on Twitter, in the absence of back and forth with Erwin the Millennial. Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that I have seen people arguing is, I've seen, myself included, I've seen people who are on one side of the fence, or on one side of this particular issue, saying the problem is you're not just forgiving student debt for people who are lower income. You're forgiving debt for doctors, lawyers, engineers. And I've had several of them today on Twitter come back at me with, that's not true. Doctors make more than $125,000, and lawyers make more than $125,000, and engineers make more than $125,000. And my response, of course, is, do they? Do they? Because let me tell you something. I a lot of people don't believe this or don't want to believe this, but I actually put a lot of research into what I say before I say it. I don't just spout stuff off the top of my head. I do my homework and I make sure that I have receipts to back up the facts that I present, whether it's on Twitter, maybe not as much on Twitter. I kind of go a little off the cuff from time to time, but I still, generally speaking,
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, exactly. But when I'm doing a show, when I'm doing my take, you better believe that anything that I say on that show, with the exception of opinion, is verifiable. You can verify the facts in this case or in those cases. And in this case, I've had a bunch of people who are coming at me and say, well, doctors make more than $125,000. You know what? Yeah, they do. Even a general practitioner in this country, even in the lowest paid state in the country, as far as median income for general practitioners, that number is still above the $125,000 to $100,000 threshold. So you're accurate. That's correct. Here's the problem. Before you get to be a GP, before you get to become a specialist, before you get to become an elite specialist who's making the big money, you have to go through residency. You are a doctor when you are a resident. All right, you have graduated from college, you have graduated from medical school, you are now a doctor, and you're going through your residency. And your residency lasts usually at least 3+ years, sometimes as much as 7 years. Now, starting first year income for a resident, you want to take a guess on what that is, Erwin the Millennial?
75.
$60,000.
$60,000.
$60,000.
So you need to tell me that you would.
Yeah, $60,000.
Forgive my student loan. The
median income for residents, doctors, is $64,000. The $64,000. Now, I will tell you, I did take some economics classes. I know quite a bit about economics, but I was not a math major. But I'm pretty sure that $64,000 is less than $125,000. I'm pretty sure I could pull out my calculator and check, but I'm pretty confident when I say that $64,000 is not only less than $125,000, it's barely half. So if you come at me and say, well, doctors aren't having loans forgiven, yeah, well, I'm going to say that is absolute bullshit, because they are. They are having their debt forgiven. Well, and then they come in and say, well, attorneys make more than $125,000. And they do, right? Those greedy lawyers, those sons of, they make $125,000 a year or more, right? Right, Erwin the Millennial?
I think that you're going to tell us no.
Well, I'm not. In 20 states throughout the 50 in the United States, not the 54 or whatever it was that Obama had traveled to, the 50 states in the union, 20 of them, the median income for attorneys is actually over $125,000. However, that means that in 30 states, or the majority, the median income for attorneys is actually under $125,000. And I want to make something perfectly clear. When I say the median income, that is for all attorneys, okay? When you have somebody who is just starting out, when they are either just starting their own practice or when they are going to join an established practice, they're generally making a hell of a lot less than that until they become established. So when they say that when the people who are in support of forgiving student debt, when they come out and say, well, attorneys make more than $125,000 a year, so they're not going to be getting debt forgiveness, again, the answer is bullshit. And the reason that it is bullshit is because, again, when they're young and they have that student debt, that's the time when they're not making that much money. So you are going to be forgiving debt for attorneys. And then engineers is not even worth talking about. I'll just real quick before I toss it back to you. Do you know what the median or the average throughout the country for engineer is for annual salary?
Mid 80s, maybe 90s.
Lower, $74,000. Now, obviously, there are engineers who make more than that, but the median, of course, is $74,000. So engineers, the guys who are designing buildings, not architects. I know the difference between an engineer and an architect. The guys who are designing, designing everything from your iPhones to your to the plumbing system throughout a strip mall. Those guys are making an average salary $74,000 a year. So again, the engineers are absolutely going to see debt forgiveness as a result of this. This program. So I've been ranting for like 10 minutes, man. I apologize. I'm going to toss it back to you, Erwin.
No, you're exactly right. And really, when you break it down, basically anybody below 35 got basically a handout yesterday. And it was a handout. Well, it wasn't exactly a handout. It was basically a handout with a strong suggestion that you vote for your Democratic congressman or senator in 2022 in November.
Well,
I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and of course that comes back to the second question in in the original trio of questions here, and that is, what is the real purpose behind this student debt forgiveness? Is this just an attempt by Democrats to buy votes in the midterm elections? And I think at this point, they are desperate for anything.
Yes.
That they can latch onto and say, look at how we're trying to help you. Look at how we're trying to help the middle class. And look at those evil Republicans. They didn't want to support this, but we do because we are not divisive at all and we love you.
This carrot has been dangled since probably 2012, maybe 2012, maybe 2014. I'm just thinking about some of Barack Obama's midterms, because I want to say that maybe Elizabeth Warren was the first one that I ever heard it from, and I want to say
she was the most prominent.
2014.
Yeah, she was definitely the most prominent.
And Bernie Sanders has never seen a free money policy that he doesn't like, so I think that he was probably another very boisterous one to talk about something like this. But
Bernie wants to forgive all debt, I think.
I don't think Bernie likes money at all. Like, I think if we could just get rid of money, Bernie would be fine with that, as long as we get rid of it, like, in the direct vicinity that he is standing in. But he...
as long as we don't redistribute his 4 houses.
That's exactly right. So basically, they are on the rope by any metric, by any conceivable poll, or by any measure. They are absolutely on the ropes, and this was one of their, in case of emergency, break glass thing that they could deploy. They've been talking about this for a long, long, long time, and they gave you just a taste because they didn't want to shoot the whole arrow. If they shot the whole arrow, which is what Elizabeth Warren has been talking about, which is getting rid of $50,000 of student loans for everybody. If they shot that whole arrow, they've got nothing more to talk about in 2024. So they gave you just a taste. But that carrot, understand that carrot's going to dangle just a little bit more. So they didn't shoot the full arrow. They still have that arrow left in the quiver.
Well, and it's not even 2024. I mean, we are in right now. We're coming up on the end of August of 2022. We're just a couple months out from midterms, and they've got to have something to talk about in the midterms this year. They've got to figure out how to hold the House and the Senate. Now, if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you I think the Republicans are going to come in and I think they're going to take the Senate. It's probably only going to be by a seat or two, but I think they're going to just demolish the House. They're going to take over the House, and they're not going to have a super majority, but they're going to have a big majority. Now, I would tell you, I think that the Republicans are probably going to end up with a 15 to 20 seat majority in the House, and they'll be lucky to hold 50-50 in the Senate. I think
so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things on the House part. It would be ahistorical if the Republicans didn't takes the House. The
Correct.
average first-term president at his first midterms loses 27 seats. So it would be it would be ahistorical if the Republicans didn't pick up probably anywhere from 25 to maybe even 35 seats in the House. Ronald Reagan lost 27 seats his first midterm. So it's not even really cause for concern if you lose 25 seats. It really isn't.
Right.
But their playbook is pretty simple to gain any amount of traction, and they've really started it back, I would say, in June or July. I didn't think that they would really start until about this time, but they really revved it up with the student loan forgiveness. But it really was pretty simple. Hammer back on COVID, and you're seeing some municipalities go back to mask mandates and things of that nature. Try to put Donald Trump on the ballot where he is not on the ballot, which they did that with the FBI raid of Donald Trump. And that was loan forgiveness piece.
That was
this is
that was a monumental error in judgment. We can get into that a little bit later, but yeah, I think that you're right. I think that this is absolutely a ploy. This is window dressing. This is to try and get the attention of the ill-informed. And if what I have seen on Twitter is any indication, then the people who are for this are definitely ill-informed. Now, we've talked a little bit about why the Democrats are doing this, and we've talked a little bit about what the is this secure, or is this just to get the votes? I do want to dive into that just a little bit more, and I want to reiterate something that you had said, and that is, obviously this is not meant to be a real cure for student debt. This is the equivalent, we were talking about doctors earlier, this is the equivalent of a compound fracture in your arm, and you go into the doctor's office and they give you an ACE bandage and some acetaminophen, and they don't set the bone. Hey, you might treat the symptom with the pain, but you're not going to fix the problem. And that is the same. That analogy works with the student debt, because, as you said, as long as the government is backing these loans, as long as 18-year-olds getting out of high school, where those high schools didn't teach them a damn thing about economics or financial responsibility, and those 18-year-olds are able to sign a loan that's basically signing their life away, and get that $40,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 for school, as long as the government is backing those loans, universities are going to continue to charge exorbitant prices for tuition, and they're going to pay egregiously high salaries to people like Elizabeth Warren, who taught one class and was paid, I don't even remember, I don't want to make up a number, but it was an exorbitant amount of money. And there's no accountability on the part of the university. As you said, as you rightly pointed out, these predatory loan companies, they don't care if they get paid by the student, because they're getting paid by the federal government. So until we get the government out of the loan business, or out of the backing the loan business, things aren't going to change. Now, I will say, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to take your point one step further here, JP, it might have started with your generation, but definitely in mine. The education system has brainwashed these children from the time they get to school that if they don't sign away their life to the tune of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for that 4-year education from that school, they're never going to be anything. That you have to go to college or you're never going to make any money. And they have programmed those children so well to believe that.
Yeah,
so
and
it is a racket from the top down.
Absolutely. And that is a great segue into the next point that I was going to make. And that is one area where we are seeing a little bit of progress is that over the last few years, there has been a real worker shortage. There have been more jobs out there than there have been people willing to work them. And we have started to see a trend, and I hate to give Google credit for anything, but in this case, I have to. Google has been a trendsetter in that they have eliminated the requirement to have a college degree for almost every position in the company. And I think that that is brilliant, because I cannot tell you how many positions I have looked at. One of the things I do, and you know this, one of the things that I do is I research. And a lot of that I'll get on and I'll see, hey, what kind of jobs are available in my area? What kind of a job is available in the area that I'm looking at for this particular story or for this particular reason? And one of the things that you see all the time is a requirement for a 4-year degree. And what's really interesting is, and especially with government jobs, is they require a 4-year degree, but it doesn't even have to be a 4-year degree that has anything at all to do with the type of job that you're applying for. And I think as we see more companies like Google and more of these big tech companies saying, you know what, as long as you have the skills, we don't care if you have the sheepskin. I think the more of that we see, the more downward pressure we may see put on college tuitions. But again, the real change is going to come once we figure out how to get government out of the backing the loan business.
Yeah, and really, it really comes back to your simple economics with supply and demand. I mean, if the demand for colleges goes down over the next 10 to 15 years, obviously the pricing is going to have to reflect as well.
Oh, and here's hoping. So that kind of brings us to the last point, the last question rather, that that we had when we're first talking about the loan forgiveness, and that is what Joe Biden is doing legal? Does the President of the United States have the authority to sign off and say, we're just going to write off X amount of debt that is currently held by the federal government? And I don't know that I know the answer to that. Do you have a take on that?
So the short answer is probably no. He doesn't have the authority, because I'd imagine this is a budgetary deal. Because obviously, if the government was likely counting on getting this money back, and they were thinking about placing this into revenues moving forward as they made up future budgets, well, if you just wiped off $500 billion in revenue over the next 10 years or what have you, I would imagine that's a budget issue, which is going to have to go through the legislature. So the short answer is probably no.
Yeah, and that would be that'd be my assumption as well. And taking this to kind of an extreme, if the President of the United States does in fact have the right to cancel specific types of debt that are owed to the federal government, then what is to stop the President of the United States from saying, oh, well, this particular company supported my campaign, let's just eliminate their tax debt? Or this particular donor donated a lot to my campaign or has been incredibly vocal about supporting me, and I want to reward them, but they have this particular debt. What's to stop the president from saying, oh, well, hey, now there's precedent, I can wipe it out?
Nothing. Literally nothing. And that's really, you're talking about an overarching problem as well, to where our government is flat out too big and the president has way too much power. I'm sorry, but that was also demonstrated in the FBI raid on Donald Trump. If they can do that to that guy who is a former president, if they can raid him, they can raid you too.
Oh, yeah.
And they will do it. They will do it. They will stomp on every single law. They will stomp on every single one of your rights if they want to, because they make the rules, and they will move the goalposts. And you know what? In some instances, there's not going to be a thing that you can do about it.
Well, in most cases. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, neither of us, and to hell with us. I mean, nobody out there has the platform or the voice that a former president has.
No.
Nobody out there has the ability to stand up and say, you know what, hey, this is a bunch of crap and I'm not going to take it. And we're going to put you on notice in front of the entire country like Donald Trump has. If they did this to you or me, or, hell, if they did this to, I did a story last week, I think it was, about an FBI agent, now former FBI agent in Arkansas, that pled guilty to intentionally, knowingly destroying evidence that could have been exculpatory for a now former state senator by the name of John Woods in the state of Arkansas. And it didn't even make national news. I mean, did you hear about the story? Nobody heard about it. I'm on Twitter half of the day, and I didn't see people talking about it. There were a few mentions of it on Truth Social, but and I think I might have saw a couple of mentions of it on Rumble. But there was there's no outcry. Well, why the hell not? If a federal agent can destroy evidence in a case against a state senator, and that state senator, as a result, can end up getting sentenced to over 18 years in prison, if they can do that to him, what could they do to me or you or anybody that's listening? The fact of the matter is they can crush you anytime they want, and there isn't a goddamn thing that you can do about it. And now, not only do you have to worry about a corrupt Department of Justice and a corrupt FBI, and I'm not saying the entire Department of Justice is corrupt. I'm not saying the entire FBI is corrupt. The problem is, as long as there are bad apples and the supposedly good ones aren't turning them in, then there's too much goddamn corruption. And I will say, just, for their credit, the FBI, the reason that we found out about former Agent Cesario in Arkansas destroying evidence was because he had mentioned it to two other agents who did turn him in. So good for them. But now, not only do you have to worry about the Department of Justice, not only do you have to worry about the FBI, but now you're going to have to worry about as many as 87,000 more IRS agents. What do you suppose they're going to do when they run out of millionaires and billionaires? Who are they going to go after? Who are they going to go after, Erwin the Millennial? Who are they going to go after when they run out of those millionaires and billionaires? And along those very same lines, why did not a single Democrat vote in favor of an amendment or of a bill that would restrict the IRS from auditing anyone with an annual income under $400,000?
Well, honestly, we got to be careful when we talk about the FBI and the IRS, because they most certainly are listening right now. And I have always been very forthcoming on my taxes, very, very much lean towards paying more, just because, it is a very noble thing to do to pay taxes.
Oh, yeah, I pay extra. I pay extra every year because I love the government so much. God, I love the government.
It's basically akin to placing some money in an offering plate at church. It's basically the same thing.
Oh, yeah, worshiping at the altar of the federal government. That's me, JP.
I don't see a reason why more people shouldn't adopt the same strategies that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you send a check for more than you owe, they will in fact cash it. Yeah, there's that.
Good luck getting it back too if you made a mistake there. But I don't know what 87,000 more people at the IRS are actually going to do. If they can't audit people that are making under that amount of money, what will they be doing?
Well, they're going to be going after. First of all, the majority, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the majority of IRS audits are actually on people who make under $200,000 a year, and the vast majority of contacts with the FBI, with the IRS, are actually people who make under $25,000 a year. Now, that doesn't mean that they're being audited, but the vast majority of contacts, whether that's phone calls, letters, whatever. So
that doesn't surprise me that the majority of audits happen from with people that make under $200,000 a year, because there are a lot more people that do that than there are people that make above that. So that makes a little bit of sense. The part that's really striking to me is the amount of contact with people that make under $25,000 a year. That's very striking to me.
It is, and it's not entirely surprising, but it is scary when you think about the vast majority of audits is happening to people and businesses under that 200,000 mark, because as you said, that encompasses most people in this country. And when the Democrats come out and they say things like nobody making under $400,000 is going to pay any more taxes, well, what they're not telling you is, well, you might not be paying any more actual tax. Like, we might not add any taxes in your particular bracket, but we're going to send the IRS after you to make sure that you pay everything that you owe, every penny that you owe. And let me tell you, for all of those pink-haired sissies out there, I said it, for all of those pink-haired sissies out there who say, oh, well, if you just pay your taxes, you got nothing to worry about. Well, okay, comrade, that's fine. You can take that attitude. But when you get audited and you have to hire a tax attorney to defend you against the IRS, you tell me how you like that bill, because you're going to pay at least $4,000 or $5,000 to get representation to go up against the IRS. And you know what their resources look like, Sport? They're limitless. They can throw everything at you. They can throw day after day, time after time, hour after hour of work at you, and you are paying an attorney for every single minute that they're spending on your case. So you could be guilty of nothing more than not keeping good records. But you know what? Now in Biden's America, with 87,000 more IRS agents, not being organized could very well be a federal crime.
And this is one of the only organizations that has the power to go into your bank account and take what they want. Like, they have the power to do that. They have most certainly done that.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, but have you seen, obviously the videos that they're showing now are pretty pathetic, but have you seen the videos that are going around of the trainings of some of these new IRS agents, or the people who are, applying to be some of these new IRS agents? They're training them with weapons. Huh. One of the requirements and this was, I think they removed it. They've removed it since. I'll have to find a copy of it to put up. But in the job description that the IRS was putting out, one of the things that they said was you had to be willing to use deadly force as an IRS agent. Let that sink in for a second. Are you willing, if necessary, to use deadly force as an IRS agent?
So that's funny, because I just Googled while you were talking the number of public schools in the U.S. And the only numbers that I can really find are from 2010. So there were 99,000 public schools in the United States of America. Now that takes into account your kindergartens, your elementary schools, your junior highs, your high school. So the number of actual facilities for public schools is lower than that number. That's what I'm kind of getting at. It's because some of these places are going to have the middle school and the high school in the same place, and the junior high and the elementary school in the same place. So what I'm getting at here is we just found it on the books to hire 87,000 IRS agents that have to be willing to use deadly force, but we couldn't hire basically 80,000 people to defend schools that were willing to use that. Does that tell you anything here?
Well, here you want to hear something really funny. It wasn't that long ago, people on the left were screaming. They were up in arms about Elon Musk wanting to spend $44 billion to buy Twitter. Well, $44 billion, you could end hunger, man. You should donate that money to end hunger, man. So why is it wrong for Elon Musk to put in an offer for Twitter, which, by the way, we need to talk about this some other time, but I swear I think he was trolling them to get them to admit how many bots are on Twitter. But anyway, I'm getting off subject. Yeah, man, $44 billion, you could end hunger. You could end hunger in the United States, man. You could end it. Well, why is that not okay? but spending $80 billion, almost twice as much, to add agents to the IRS. Why is that okay? And $80 billion that they're planning on spending on this, how many audits do you suppose they're going to have to do to make up for the $80 billion price tag?
That's a lot. The thing that's really kind of starting to bug me is that when you talk about adding $80 billion to the budget, or you talk about spending that amount of money, you even talk about student loans and how much money that's going to cost the government in revenue, which is about, I think the number that I saw was $400 to $500 billion over a certain amount of time. They'll always tell you that, oh, well, that's just a drop in the bucket to the feds, or, oh, that's not really that much money for the feds. At the end of the day, the amount of times that I have heard that really kind of compounds, adds up, and then all of a sudden we're talking about quite a bit of money. It almost seems like, in a vacuum, adding $80 billion or spending $80 billion for the feds is not that much. However, we have a lot of things that we have basically told you aren't going to cost that much money, all compounding and ending up basically drowning us because it's almost death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Well, and it's actually worse than that. When you think about the fact that we don't have this money, where is this money coming from? It's coming from two places. It's coming from the printing presses, and it's coming from China. So we are literally borrowing money that we're paying interest on to fund programs that we don't need and to send to foreign countries that we shouldn't be sending money to. So we're getting way off topic or out into the weeds there, but
it's fine. It's a podcast. We haven't been on for a while. I just kind of figured this is what we were going to do.
I just get on and shoot the
Beep, beep.
So we're getting off into the weeds here. What we need to do a couple of podcasts like this to kind of get our feet back under us, and we need to work on mapping things out a little better instead of just getting on and shooting the breeze. We need to have a sense of direction. So
summer breeze makes you fine.
Yeah, I'll be real curious to see what this sounds like in post. So. Yeah, we're recording this. We're recording this in the afternoon on Thursday, August 25th. It's probably going to be Saturday before I can get this edited. So who knows?
Well, we got Huskers play on Saturday.
Huskers do play on Saturday. They're playing Northwestern in Ireland. And did you see the? God, I can't remember who wrote it. It was one of those mix over in Ireland. There, I can say that because I'm a pasty-faced Irishman myself. So yeah, I don't want to get any emails about that shit. Sorry about that.
Beep, beep.
But did you see the frapping hit piece about the Huskers? I mean, it's like they need somebody to be the bad guys in this matchup because people in Ireland don't know who the hell Northwestern is and don't know who the hell Nebraska is.
All they know is that the head coach for Northwestern's last name is Fitzgerald, so they just kind of picked him.
Yeah, so but Scott Frost is a redhead, for God's sake. Come on.
Kind of.
He's blonded up a little bit in his old age, but he certainly was a redhead when he was playing. But anyway, yeah, it was a pretty brutal hit piece, and I mean they went back to Lawrence Phillips, and they were just tearing Nebraska up, which is kind of funny. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens if Nebraska comes out to a chorus of a bunch of boos on Saturday. I mean, obviously there's going to be boos because it's Ireland.
How do you boo in?
Come on, that was funny. Ireland boos. Oh my God, come on, that was man. Screw you. That was funny. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Nebraska is going to come out and it's going to be, it's going to be kind of like they're the away team in a bowl game. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see how many Huskers travel, how many Husker fans travel to see that game. It'll be interesting to see how many
American.
What's that?
There ain't nothing more American than college football on Saturday mornings than spending money you don't have.
Yeah. Well, especially the spending money you don't have. That's very American.
Yeah. It could not be more American than that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see, if Scott Frost still has a job at the end of this season. I saw an interesting post not too long ago, it was like right before we started the podcast. There was a post I saw on Twitter. It said that it was it was Bet Online. The odds of the first coach being fired this season in the Big Ten, and number one was Scott Frost.
Yeah,
with it was like a -100 or -120. I mean, basically, they're saying he's getting fired this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. If he doesn't come out of the gate strong, and if he doesn't have a market improvement over what they've done the last few years.
Yep, we shall see.
And so at this point, I mean, obviously we've lost, the 8 people that were listening are like, Husker football, what the frack are they talking about? Shut up. What? Nobody cares.
Who cares?
Nebraska hasn't been relevant in 22 years. So yeah, we'll talk about something else. The raid on Mar-a-Lago. We'll get back into politics.
We'll get back into the reason that you came to listen to our stuff.
Yeah, and if you did come to listen to us, what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, don't you have anything better to do with your time?
I think so.
But I think that now you made an excellent point, and I apologize. I disremember if you made this point while we were talking earlier today or yesterday, or if this was something you said on the podcast. But it was also something that I saw that Larry Kudlow actually said yesterday, and that was that this entire raid on Mar-a-Lago has a hell of a lot less to do with any supposed evidence that they have or had or thought they could attain, and has a hell of a lot more to do with doing anything and everything to keep Trump off of the ballot in 2024. The left is still absolutely scared crapless of Donald Trump, and they are terrified that he is going to be the Republican nominee again in 2024. And I will tell you, for full disclosure, I voted for Joe Jorgensen. I've said it 100 times. People don't believe me. You know what? I'm not MAGA. I am not a huge Trump supporter. I like Donald Trump. I like a lot of the things that he did. There's a couple things that he did that I can't get over, banning bump stocks. Man, you're infringing on the Second Amendment, and your deficit spending was out of control, and there's no excuse. But that said, Trump did have a lot of policies that I liked. I didn't like him maybe personally as much as a lot of people did. But because of the treatment that we have seen of Donald Trump over the last 5 or 6 months, but the last month especially, I said it on one of the shows that I did earlier this month, and I'll say it here on the podcast. I don't care. At this point, if Donald Trump runs again, and I don't want him to, I will be clear about that. I don't want Donald Trump to run again. But if Donald Trump runs again, I'm going to vote for him. I didn't vote for him last time. I voted for Joe Jorgensen. I voted my conscience. This time I'll vote for Trump. And I'll vote for Trump because if the left is that scared of him, that they will do the things that they have done, this is a guy who has been under constant, nonstop investigation since the moment he came down the escalator at Trump Tower to announce that he was going to run for president. He has been under nonstop investigation, and you know what? You haven't got one thing that you can charge him with. Nothing. And if anybody was under this kind of scrutiny, they'd find something if you had done anything. And I think it's ridiculous. I agree with Larry Kudlow. I agree with you. I think that the entire purpose behind this was to, first of all, try to discredit him, and second, try to get him to be ineligible somehow to run for public office again.
So They need him to be in the news, though, because it's really easy to basically run against him when he's not on the ballot. And what I'm meaning by that is they want to paint their opponents in some of these swing states and some of the Senate and House races. They want to paint their opponents as Donald Trump. So if they keep him in the news, they can run against him when he's not even on the ballot a little bit more than they could if he's not in the news.
Sure,
but
and I agree with that to a point, but how well did that work for Liz Cheney? Because Donald Trump beat her by 37 points, and he wasn't even on the ballot.
Yeah, the difference there is she is definitely in a red state, and also it turns out that Republicans are really turned off by the whole John McCain or Mitt Romney thing anymore, to where you can make your career as a Republican basically just opposing everything that the Republicans do. Like, the Republicans are pretty turned off by those types of people. And Liz Cheney,
I'm sorry. Who again are they turned off by?
John McCain and Mitt Romney.
Dum, 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 dum.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that the first time around.
Got to make sure that we get it in there. It's a classic.
Well, you can't say Mitt Romney
Dum, 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 dum.
without throwing that in there. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm glad that we circled back and got it. But the Republicans are really turned off by those people. But I guess the overall point that I would make in this whole thing is, how politically incompetent do you have to be to make Donald Trump look like a victim? Like, he
Right.
is your garden variety high school bully. From any objective human being, they would probably say that he is a lot more like the kid that's picking on the other kids on the playground. He is a bully. His Twitter persona is a bully. It was almost like a WWF or WWE now, like just bad guy. Like Ted DiBiase, if you recall that guy, JP.
Yeah, you know,
I recall you have a...
Yeah, he's not a
solid
sympathetic character, Donald Trump.
Yeah. So, but somehow, some way, the Democrats have been such incompetent boobs that Donald Trump looks like a victim. With that being said, you have this guy looking like a victim, and America likes an underdog story, so you have a lot more people in your category, JP, where they're saying, you know what, I didn't like this guy until you guys started picking on him. Now I'm going to vote for him.
Well, and I think you're right. I think you're right, and I think, like I said, I'm gonna say this one more time, just for complete clarity. I do not want Donald Trump to run. I don't. I would much prefer to see a younger candidate, somebody who is maybe a little more conservative, certainly fiscally a little more conservative. But I would like to see somebody who is going to come in and pick up the torch and run with it. Best case scenario, Trump has 4 years. But let's face facts. I mean, the guy is in his late 70s at this point. And yeah, okay,
right.
he's sharp now, but you get into your 70s, your late 70s especially, and you're hitting the event horizon there. It's only a matter of time before things start going south. And obviously,
Joe Biden proved that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Joe Biden proved that to us.
5 years ago, I've never liked Joe Biden, but 5 years ago, Joe Biden was at least a sharp guy. You might disagree with everything he said, but at least what he said, for the most part, made sense. Now, the guy can't string a sentence together.
No, he's gone. And it's funny because whenever you say that he's gone, like any Democrat in the room will like just be really quiet until the subject changes. They know, they absolutely know, but they won't acknowledge it. They'll just be like, "Yep," or they won't even say yes. They'll say, "Can we potentially talk about something else?"
Well, or they'll do the finger pointing. Well, yeah, but what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? Whataboutism doesn't really work if you're not being intellectually honest. And I'll call out the Republicans. I'll call out the Democrats. I don't care who you are. If you do something that I feel is wrong, I'm going to call you out on it.
Let's take a step back from this. You willingly took out the college loans. Nobody held a gun to your head to take out student loans. That's a little bit different than the loans that we're talking about for businesses, because the government literally forcibly shut the country down or forced you to close your business during COVID. I'm sorry, but with that being said, you couldn't do business, so they said, okay, here's some money because you can't do business. So it's a little bit different. They're categorically different.
Well, they're categorically different, but you hit the nail on the head there. It was the fault of the government. The government never should have been, and obviously we're getting way out into the weeds here, but the government never should have been shutting businesses down. They never should have been shutting people down. They never should have been forcing mandates, these draconian mandates on people that didn't work, which of course, leads me to the Ron DeSantis, America's governor, who, refused to shut anything down. Florida shut down for about 2 weeks, and he said, what the hell with this?
Anyways, yes, we are way off into the weeds.
Yeah, indeed. And I think we probably need to bring it back, bring it back in, reel it in a little bit. At this point we've been going for quite a while, which is great. I really enjoy the conversation and I really enjoy the back and forth. I think we've covered some pretty good ground today. I don't think that there's been anything groundbreaking in this conversation, but I do think that we tackled and touched on quite a few pretty good points. We don't believe that this decree from King Joseph I is legal. Is it going to get struck down? Probably not. Is it going to end up in the Supreme Court? Probably not. It should. Are they going to do it regardless of whether or not it's legal? Probably, yes. And obviously, we think this is not a real cure for student debt, and we think that that it's absolutely a little more than a bribe by Democrats to try and pick up more votes in the midterms. They probably don't think they can keep people excited about murdering babies long enough to keep them interested for the midterms. So I think it's been a pretty fun. It certainly has been fun for me. I don't know about the poor people listening, but it's been fun for me. It's been a pretty fun and entertaining afternoon. And man, I can't speak for you, but if you can keep away from the underage Vietnamese prostitutes for a while, man, I'd love to get together and do this again.
It's good to be back. I would have enjoyed not being on an FBI watch list, but now apparently JP has ensured that we are going to be watched.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The first thing that happens is the FBI and the IRS. I've seen it 100 times.
All right. Well, I do really appreciate you calling today, Erwin the Millennial. It was really great to hear from you again. And again, I hope that we're able to do it again soon. I hope that we're able to kind of get back into the swing of doing things. And I can guarantee you that these politicians are going to keep giving us subject matter to talk about. Yeah, absolutely. So for Erwin the Millennial, I am JP. This is Political Pop Culture. We do appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day. And if you have any questions, give us a shout. You can reach us at contact@politicalpopculture.com. And you can also contact us by joining the cult. Join the cult at PolPopCult on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, and Truth Social. Oh, and YouTube. Don't forget YouTube. We're all over social media. So feel free to shoot us a message, shoot us a question. And maybe we can talk about what you have to talk about in our next episode. So thank you again, and we will hopefully talk to you again soon.